Congressman Louie Gohmert from Texas joins us now with his reaction. Congressman, thanks for being here. Let's start with Michigan and the decision by the GOP canvassers to rescind their certification of the county's results. Now, they claim they faced harassment. We heard on that Zoom video they were called racist. They were doxxed by fellow board members. What do you make of what's happening in Michigan right now?
Well, it is really outrageous what these folks have had to go through. The threats, the blackmail, the extortion, those are terms that apply here. When you have people threatening them physically, threatening their children, their families, their home, that really should have the Department of Justice moving in. But we've seen very little to be happy about in the way of justice from the Justice Department. For too long, it's been the Department of Injustice, and it still is as long as Christopher Wray is head of the FBI. But this should have been something that the FBI swooped in, and it should be the FBI that's getting sworn testimony instead of the Republicans. I mean, I've got one affidavit here this week that talks, it's a Dominion employee, how they used the equipment, ran the same ballots through many times. They'd have 50 ballots, but they would run them through at least 8 times and count them as a batch of 400. What's gone on there in Detroit is just so outrageous. It really is third world country type of manipulation, like you had in the Soviet Union, like you had in Iraq under Saddam Hussein, and like you had under Chavez and Maduro in Venezuela. Wow. We should not be like that here in the United States. Yeah, but that's exactly what we're seeing.
Those are some strong statements to compare the U.S. elections to what we've seen in those countries. But you mentioned the Dominion voting system, and quite frankly, it has been subjected to lots of scrutiny. There was a decision made not to use the system in Texas, your great state. Why did officials come to that conclusion?
Well, I've talked to some of those officials, and they said, try as Dominion might, they could not show that their equipment was secure, that it could not be manipulated. It was just not trustworthy. So Texas would not approve the use of the Dominion voting machines there. They may be good enough for Venezuela, but they weren't good enough for Texas.
So you mentioned again those concerns about security, potential foreign interference as well. This should remind everyone of what we had heard for 4 years from certain mainstream media outlets, the concern about foreign interference and election integrity. Yeah. And what's interesting, Congressman, is in 2020, we don't hear echoes of that same concern if you're watching certain outlets. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the reason we haven't heard as much from the Democrats about it now is because there's been so much domestic manipulation, interference, the multiple counting of ballots, switching Republican votes to Democratic votes. There's just so much domestic manipulation. And of course, you have the high-tech fascists like, what's his name, that wants to look like Rasputin, but with the beard.
Jack Dorsey, the Twitter CEO.
Yeah, Dorsey. Yeah, I mean, these guys, they have been manipulating things. They've used their industries as a weapon against Republicans, against conservatives. And but there is also the foreign manipulation that's going on. Back in 2017, you had one of the top federal, and by top I don't mean good, just a high-ranking cybersecurity expert here in the federal government testifying before the Senate and saying that you can rest assured none of the equipment gets hooked up to the internet ever. Well, even for heaven's sake, a network called NBC back January 10th had an article that established, gee, we just hired some experts, and they all said that right now there's 35, 36 of those systems are hooked up to the internet, and at different times there may be a lot more than that. Yes, they get hooked up to the internet. In fact, electronic voting system company called Seidel, with their headquarters that was in Barcelona, Spain, moved to Frankfurt, Germany. They were getting the votes where they aggregate the votes, they supply them to the media in real time, but those are subject to manipulation, and it's something we really need to see here in the U.S., what the vote count was going into the Seidel system and what it was coming out.
Yeah.
So this is just unbelievable that this most advanced country that used to be the most free country would now be subject to this kind of manipulation in a federal election.
Yeah, these are some very serious concerns, of course. We're going to continue to follow this here. I do want to, we don't have as much time as I'd love to spend with you here. We've got to end this on a lighter note. We know you are, of course, from Texas. Want to ask you about some comments made from a fellow Texan actor, Matthew McConaughey, about the possibility of him running for office. Listen to this.
I don't know. I mean, that wouldn't be up to the people more than it would me. I would say this. Look, politics seems to be a broken business to me right now. And when politics redefines its purpose, I could be a hell of a lot more interested.
Would he have your vote?
Well, I don't know, but about all I can say is, all right, all right, all right.
You do that so well. Great
well,
stuff.
he's from my district originally.
Yeah, I know. He speaks out sometimes about politics. It's really interesting stuff. We'll keep an eye on him, see if he's got a future there. Congressman Louie Gohmert of Texas, though, we appreciate you taking the time and joining us here on Newsmax.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congressman, given the